Hello everyone, my name is Gabriela Saenger Silva. I am an arts researcher, educator and curator, the last maybe less than the other ones. And as my bio says, I have been working for the last, it's a long time now, 14 years for biennials. I've done 10 biennials so far in my life, comprising by Mercusul, São Paulo, and Liverpool Biennial. Um, Recently, I am researching in my PhD about discursive programs of biennials, which is for me a kind of passionate and really interesting project. I hope. I hope it is for the people too that's going to read it later, and it's going to be interesting for people to use a reference maybe for some ideas. And I am here today to participate because I want to talk a bit about these processes and this project and how maybe I came across with this idea of like experience and sharing knowledge and spaces of development within the community, even from a biennial perspective. I'd like to talk to you about probably three projects that I developed closely in different biennials and from different years as well. And some ideas that I'm kind of extracting from them slowly through my thesis writing and my project because this is like exactly the phase I am right now. So I think the first project I want to talk about is from the 2011 biennial of Mercusul Biennial, which was the 8th edition of the Mercusul Biennial, curated by Jose Roca from Colombia and co-curated by Paolo from Mexico, Alexia Tala from Chile, Cauê Alves from Brazil, Adelaide do Amaral from Brazil, and Pablo Guerra from Mexico, but based in the United States. This congregation of curators was somehow a way that Jose Roca proposed when he was introducing this idea of the essays of geopolitics, essays of geopolitics. So the idea was rethink about the space from the macro to the micro, like macro to micro, in all the levels throughout the biennial, and somehow he proposed to interject, I would say, like into the composition of the curatorial group, also like maybe the dislocation of these hierarchical places. He was all the time, of course, like the main person responsible to say there's nays and no's, says and no's of the project, but at the end, across the whole projects we had through the beginning of the first conversations of names of artists and projects, we, local production team, and lots of other people of different groups were participating on that from like the first beginning. We used to have like big like meetings of 3-4 days with around 25 people, trying to identify also what we had before in terms of network, what was already there composed by the previous biennials, which was kind of interesting because usually what we have in the compositions of the biennial as an institutions, because you shut down everything and then you restart everything every 2 years, like you just kind of, you close the tab, start again a new one, and somehow this memory, this history, this heritage of the project itself can be lost, and usually it's what happened. In this case, I think Roca was really precise, I would say, into saying, no, look, we need this local knowledge to go further with the ideas we have. And it was a really intense biennial across the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which is maybe, I would say in terms of size, is the size of England itself and has around 15 million inhabitants, so it's not a small place, and covered areas from also Argentina and Uruguay because of the border situation of the state of Rio Grande do Sul, which is south of Brazil. But altogether, I want to speak really about a really amazing project called Casa M, which is M House. This was a really interesting project that was proposed by Roca and Elguera in a way to compose a kind of temporary autonomous zone in a house that could be used inside out to connect the community and work in the long program process within the process of the biennial. So somehow, besides the big exhibition you had in the museums and the warehouses and other places that we were occupying, you had this like continuous program place that started around, I think the biennial that year was like around September to November 2011, but the Casa M opened in May and it closed in December. So we had like a really kind of extensive 9 months program around that. And Casa M was a place that many of the people participating on that, let's say this was like a kind of collective delirium that kind of worked somehow. We had like a cinema, a library, 2 workshop rooms, a small garden area that we could use for performances and also for organizing some spaces as like growing food and things like that with the community. We have like a big rooftop as well, and we had also some small offices and an amazing kitchen. So throughout the process of the biennial, I was looking into like the chart and trying to understand how many activities we had. So throughout 9 months, we had probably around 50,000 people visiting the house, and we had like written down around 389 activities throughout this 9 months. So, but you have to imagine that those activities were like activities that would work from some of the educators that were working with the biennial that will propose some courses with teachers, will be visitors that we invited to come, from curators to amazing artists that could do like workshops. Could be also something that happened in a spontaneous way. A series of groups of people were starting to develop some podcasts or some video work for like YouTube and things like that, and they will come to use the spaces of the house, and it was open to everyone. I think one project that I want to talk about that was quite interesting for us was what you call the neighborhoods engagement project. I think it doesn't really translate well to English, but will be like Oficina dos Vizinhos or the neighborhood workshop. So the idea was to engage with the local people around the house to understand what were their needs in the space and how this would how this space could work for them in terms of discussion, appropriation, local politics, and things like that. And it was quite interesting that throughout the time that we were there for 9 months, we had this kind of, after some time, a weekly meeting with these neighbors. And we, of course, discover amazing things from people that live around. And this big project managed to do like a big fair of the works and the ideas and all the discussions developed throughout these 9 months with the people, with the local people, in this big weekend that we closed the street and we made like a big fair and a big festivity to close the house as well, which is what kind of really sad too. I think the project of Casa M, we had like on the 25th of September, we had like a meeting about 10 years after, how this correlates to our own work. We are like 9 people talking from these curators and local educators, and it's quite amazing how it reverberates to our life in terms of the knowledge that we acquired there, or the trials that we did there, how this kind of goes through our own professional life. And Jose Roca now, that is he's a curator of the Sydney Biennial. He said that because of Casa M, he's able to understand the possibilities of how you have to create a kind of harmonization of the ideas, a harmonization of ideas in which we can distribute the knowledge and try to speak the same language. And he said, I'm only able to do this now with the institutions in Sydney because I had Casa M as an example from these multiple people and places and ideas working together in one same place. I think part also from the experience of Casa M, you can see some registers of the education and expanded education project and books that were written by Paolo as well. And some of these ideas are also written into a book that was organized by the team thinking about education in the expanded field. I'm going to share all these links with you guys. And I think it's quite interesting that you see that maybe there is a kind of a time frame for this project, but somehow this expands and creates a kind of an archaeology of processes to other institutions. Because of Casa M too is the reason why I came to work for Liverpool Biennial, because exactly it was in a big seminar that we made that was based inside the Casa M, that one of our guest speakers was Sally Talent, in between the moment that she was leaving Serpentine Gallery and coming to the Liverpool Biennial. And it was quite interesting to see that the whole Casa M project somehow inspired her to rethink about the idea of mediation into Liverpool Biennial, which she managed to introduce only on 2014, because when she arrived in 2011 to Liverpool, the 2012 Biennial was kind of already ongoing. And another project I want to talk about, just kind of maybe in a more and less in-depth way, because I wasn't involved directly, is Homebaked. I think it's Homebaked here in Liverpool is one project that maybe completely changes, I think, the way we can understand a project that starts inside a biennial process. So Homebaked actually is recently, Homebaked is a CLT, which is a community land trust organized by the public, there's a community group in Anfield area in Liverpool. And this project was kind of seeded by a project that started in the Liverpool Biennial 2012, when they invited the artist Jan van Heeswijk to come to Liverpool and start a project with people in Anfield area, thinking about these difficulties and displacement of the housing and the gentrification. And exactly in the same time that she was walking around the area developing this project called Two Up to Down, it was the moment in which the community lost their bakery that was in the corner, and somehow this community that needed some help somehow find this artist that's working there through the biennial and organize this series of projects and meetings that started in 2012. What's amazing that happens in 2014 is that somehow there is a process of a handover, and in through a symposium and a seminar that discusses the process of like how Homebaked was constituted, how Homebaked was developed, and there is a kind of a handover from the biennial to the community officially somehow, you know, like to like we are not involved in this anymore. This is really yours. This is truly your part of your story. And just recently I saw that there is a musical about Homebaked I didn't manage to see, which was a really pity. I would love to go and see, and I didn't manage to. But just thinking about this moment, truly, like there was like a both biennials, Mercusul and Liverpool Biennial, both biennials, they have somehow in time a kind of a moment in which they have this kind of a switch into looking into their communities more in depth, and we started to try to develop projects that are a bit different than those projects that are comprised into the period of the biennial that you do. There's of course lots of problems about that, projects that you try to make it and they actually don't work, which is a really pity sometimes. But some of them, if they work, they kind of they leave loads of important elements to the community and to the artists as well. They are participating on that. I think I'm going to finish here just because I spoke like these two projects in a more in-depth way, so we can have like a discussion about that. And I think I am interested about a couple of things right now, which that like how can we identify and change into the biennials these switching moments that are happening into other places as well. For example, Bergen Assembly, that changed considerably like since the beginning of the process, or started as a more discursive process. And also how we can profit is maybe the wrong word, isn't it? But how can we take advantage for a positive way into like making inside the biennials spaces of experience and sharing of knowledge. I'm interested about this. See you guys in a bit, and let's go to discuss.